bees are squeezing nectar just like milking cows, but this bee is different. He pierces the flower stalk with his stinger, then secures the bucket, slides down, the stalk flips. The switch and the nectar flows into the bucket. Another bee was collecting pollen, like humans harvesting wheat. After drying the pollen, they flicked it onto leaves with forks. The pollen slid down the leaves and finally dropped into tiny carts below, following them back to the hive. The scene inside was jaw-dropping. The bees poured the pollen into a press, pulled the ropes to squeeze out its nectar, and sent it on to the next stage. They sifted and separated the pollen non-stop. Several bees stirred the nectar with spoons, and one even used an egg beater. Working with impressive skill, the chef bee tasted carefully, making sure the temperature was just right. At last, the finished honey was poured into molds, then sealed with hot wax. Even though they worked like this every day, it didn't stop them from bonding. They chased each other, playing hide and seek. But what they didn't know was that a spider had already marked them as prey. It followed silently, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. When a bee slipped into a flower, the spider pounced and carried it off. Carl rushed in, jabbing the spider hard with his stinger. Annoyed, the spider spun around in fury. One hit from its limbs knocked Carl unconscious, dragging its catch back to its lair. The spider thought it had won, but Carl stormed into the nest to save the captured bee. The fight was uneven, and he failed. Still, he refused to give up. He charged back in again. This time, the bee escaped safely, but Carl himself was captured. The rescued bee raced out, dialed the hive's emergency line, and the message spread through the vines. A horn blared the alert, and in seconds, the entire hive mobilized. They shifted into formation midair, racing after the fleeing spider. The moment the spider crawled out of its lair, it saw the swarm closing in. They struck its belly with stingers, then dove down for another hit, and finally, all stung at once on command. The assault was so fierce, the spider couldn't take it. In the end, it had no choice but to flee. From the shadows, Carl staggered out of the nest, weak but alive. One bee kissed him on the cheek, and in an instant, Carl was filled with energy again.